Hey everybody, Azureth Strife here from Next Level Z here at Top Deck Cards and Games again, bringing you a new decked profile that I took a poll on last night with Retro and Retro DBZ on Facebook, and the winner was my Red Ruthless Trunks deck. Now, I know everybody's going to say, Ruthless, why isn't it Tearless? Well, that's because I like Trunks. And I feel Trunks can really do a lot of things that Tearless really can't. Tearless is kind of just a Hail Mary deck. Trunks allows for a little bit more control and consistency, in my opinion. So running his old level 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3. These are my proxies. I do have the real ones here. Just the ability to look at a player's deck, rearrange the top 4 on his levels 1 and 2, and rearrange them in any order. Really helps to set up certain draws, so that you don't necessarily fully dead draw. And then the level 3 being able to just rearrange top 6, draw a card, really nice. Also the 1 and 2 allowing for discard pile control. Discard pile removal is a very big thing in this deck. It's also a very overlooked mechanic that people are not utilizing, in my opinion, nowadays, which is why I'm really enjoying Trunks. Obviously with the Red Ruthless Mastery. So we're going into our planning phase here, running 1 copy of Dr. Brief. Kind of been toying around with this. He generally is just a setup that allows me to draw a card when I'm in combat because he's targeted very quickly and I have no ways of getting him back. But just being able to go up another card in Trunks, especially if you have some of the other setups in play, allows for some really explosive turns. Two copies of Visit in the Past. Staple, as I said in the last video, this card is stapled in every deck too, of just the power that it brings. Running 2 copies of Red Cover Drill. I didn't even know this card existed until I started building this deck. So its effect is if it's banished from your discard pile during combat, you can place a Style Drill from your discard pile into play, so it can target itself if somebody actually banishes it. This deck doesn't have any way of banishing it on its own since it doesn't work for Endurance. Does have Endurance 3, which is incredible, and its constant effect is your physical attacks can't have their damage prevented, so it turns all your attacks into Tearless, which is why I feel that Red has enough anti-prevention that you don't need to necessarily run Tearless anymore, and it allows you to run Trunks' named cards, which are incredibly good in this deck too. Running 2 copies of Aggressive Sword Drill. Named attacks can't have their damage prevented. Again, another theme, anti-prevention. And its power of generating a card advantage of when entering combat, you can search for a card with sword in the title and put it in your hand. Combos really well with a card I'm going to get to in a little bit, one of Trunks' named cards. So just a really, really strong drill that allows you to generate advantage. And then finally, probably the best red card in the game, Red Relaxation. Setup sits on the field, use it when entering combat, so your opponent has very little ability to interact with it. Use it when entering combat, you get to use a critical damage effect, so capture that Dragon Ball or kill a pesky ally out there, or if you need to just lower their anger. You gain 2 stages and draw the bottom card of your discard pile. Again, card advantage. This deck can generate so many cards in its hand. I've gotten up to 7, 8 cards in my hand just from entering combat. It's pretty crazy, and I love it. Like, just being able to play Trunks in this deck and get the advantage that all these cards can give you is so key. So then I'm going to move on to the physical attacks of the deck because it's a Ruthless deck. What would a Ruthless deck be that doesn't run physical attacks? Well, that would be Ten Shinhan, but that's not this deck. So running 2 copies of Red Collision. I like this card. 2 Endurance. Anger 1, physical attack for AT plus 3, so AT plus 5 if you have your Mastery active. Its hit effect is nice, so you can search your discard pile for an attack card and put it on top of your discard pile, again, to set up your Mastery. And if it's banished from the top of your from your discard pile by your effects, you gain an Anger. So it allows for more anger. The deck does want to level, so really, really nice. Just as a 2-of, would be nice if it didn't banish after use, but then it wouldn't really synergize with its hit effect. 2 copies, Red Forceful Strike. This card is needed because Red has very little board control. So when this card is performed from your discard pile, you get to destroy a setup or drill. Physical attack for AT plus 3, again, AT plus 5 if your Mastery is active. And if you hit with it, you can banish the top card of your life deck to destroy a setup or drill. So really nice board control that card offers. 2 copies, Red Mule Kick. Wall Breaker seeing less and less play. That's really the only reason that this card is seeing any play still, is because Wall Breaker still exists. 2 Endurance, AT plus 2, and Raise Your Anger, getting to banish a card attached. With the rise of Saiyan, this also becomes really nice, just to kind of get rid of their attached cards that you have no way of interacting with. 2 copies of Red Heel Kick. Just another attack to generate more actions, being able to spend your anger that you have to grab an attack card from your discard pile, put it in your hand. Has to be a styled attack, and it can't be Red Heel Kick. So, moving on, we have 3 copies of Trunks Slam. It's his new named card from set 5, from the Perfection set. It's considered styled, so fantastic. Like, I realized that, and I'm like, that card's going in this deck, because Ruthless Mastery only works on styled physical attacks. Raises your anger 1, great. If you stop an attack in your opponent's last action, they have to pass, which is very, very key. Allows you to get out of a bad combat if you have to. Also just allows you to keep doing what you need to do with your turn. 3 copies, Trunks Sword Slash. Very little to say about this card because of how good it is. Physical attack, 1 stage, yeah, that sucks. Non-styled, also sucks. But being able to banish 6 cards from your opponent's discard pile, so key. And being able to grab it off the top of your discard pile with your Mastery. And the hit effect, while not as relevant, still really nice at making your next styled energy attack unstoppable. 3 copies of I'll Dig Your Grave. Almost a staple nowadays in physical decks, or in any beatdown deck. I went over this in my last video, but 6 stages is very important. And level yourself to level your opponent. Really, really powerful effect. Don't use it all that much in this deck, but you can. 3 copies, Red Double Strike. Physical attack, 18 stages, raise your anger 1, and it stays to be used a second time. Trunks' power stages are very high, so if you've gotten them down to 0, this can hit for upwards 5, 7, 8, 9 stages, depending on cards that you've used earlier in the combat. And following that theme, 3 copies, Red Shattering Leap. This card is what made Red Turles a powerhouse. Physical attack for AT plus 4. If it hits, it gets to be used twice. And then you can just Mastery it back. You can get 4 attacks out of 1 card. What more could you ask for? An advantage there. And to go with the sword theme, Red Sword Stab. Very simple card, but a card that I love. Physical attack, raise your anger 1, AT plus 4, 3 endurance. Can't really, you can ask for more from this card, but you're not going to get it. But it does exactly what it needs to do. It hits hard, and it's beefy endurance. Next to the energy attacks, only running 4 of them. 2 copies of Red Static Shot. I feel with Yamcha being released, this card becomes even more important in a red beatdown deck, because it doesn't just shut off prevention, it shuts off endurance entirely from your styled attack, so they can't even banish that Yamcha's Rescue to end combat. Hit raise your anger 2 levels, never a bad thing. It's an auto crit if you actually hit with it, because it does 5 life cards and they can't use endurance, unless they have modifiers, obviously. 2 copies of Red Freezing Beam. I love this card. Energy attack, costs 2 stages. It does AT plus 2 stages for damage, and you may raise your anger 1 and search your discard pile or banner zone for a drill and place it into play, which is very good since we're leveling, but we also run drills, so having a way to get them back is really nice. And it has endurance 1, so you know, it does a little bit of everything this deck wants to do. Moving on to our events, running 3 copies of Red Stop. Red's Omni Block. Stops physical or energy attack. You may lower your anger 1 to search your discard pile or banner zone for a style drill, place it into play, so it gets those red cover drills back. Can't target aggressive sword drill, but it's a great card nonetheless. Tama's Warrior's Tool, staple in every deck. Stop all attacks for that combat from your opponent. Does exactly what you need it to do. Red Restriction. I run 1 copy of this strictly for a defensive turn, or if I'm going aggressive with one of Trunks' later levels that allows me to draw into it. What it does is you draw 2 cards, use it when entering, draw 2 cards, discard 1 card. For the remainder of combat, your opponent has to either play a card with the sword icon as an attack or pass. So it shuts off black power up so your opponent can't leave combat. The black Devious Mastery, which is probably Red Ruthless's #1 deterrent. So this can just give you an entire combat of free reign against your opponent to where they just kind of have to sit there and take it. Doesn't stop blinding energy move, but hopefully with your Trunks, you've been able to set up your opponent's hand that they don't have one. 2 copies, Confrontation. Just a great card. I'd love to have it up to a 3, but unfortunately I just couldn't find room for the deck, room for the 3rd one. 2 Heroic Energy Spheres. Just to stop, this is primarily to stop Time as a Warrior's Tool. Time as a Warrior's Tool is a huge deterrent to this deck. So just being able to shut it down when your opponent thinks that they're safe, and then you just go off and potentially deal enough damage that they just can't recover from it. And finally, 2 copies of Trunks Sword Stance. This card, I openly admit, I thought this card was awful when it first came out. But with the implementation of Aggressive Sword Drill, Trunks Sword Stance became infinitely more powerful because it no longer puts you down a card. That was its main drawback. So what it does is you can't win by MPPV if you use this card. You banish it after use. Use when entering combat. Name a card. Reveal the top card of your life deck. If the revealed card is the named card, raise your anger 6 levels, and you may shuffle your life deck. So Trunks' level 1 and 2 and 3 allow him to search the top 4 or 6 cards of his life deck. So he can synergize this to be able to just keep jumping levels. Again, like I said, the main problem with it was it used to put you down a card. It no longer does that because you can search it out with your drill. For my block lineup, I'm running 3 red blocking hands because I feel that is probably the best block in red. Stop a physical attack, raise your anger 2, gain 2 stages. Physical blocks are very, very important in a physical-based deck because 1 black defensive burst can shut your entire combat down. And that is, I've had that happen to me on more than 1 occasion, and it is not good. 3 copies of Red Capture. New card from set 5. This card is fantastic for the Red Ruthless because Red Ruthless's mastery effect of when entering combat banishes a card from the top of your discard pile. A lot of my attacks are banished after use. So what it does is it stops a physical attack. Your next attack this combat deals plus X stages of damage, where X equals the number of cards in your banish zone to a maximum of 10. So if you somehow get your opponent to walk into it and you double red capture them, you can throw a physical attack for plus 20 stages. I've done it. It is a glorifying feeling. I love this card. And finally, my energy blocks of Red Energy Defensive Stance. I don't see a reason to run any other energy block. If you're not going to run it, if you're going to run an energy block, run this one. If you're going to run more, make sure this is in one of them. Endurance 2, stop an energy attack, raise your anger 1. It does exactly what you need it to do as an energy block. So that is my Red Ruthless Trunks deck using the old stack. Glad to see Trunks is finally being able to see the play that I feel he deserves because he's such a good personality at discard pile and hand manipulation. Again, guys, thank you guys for watching. If you like what you guys saw, feel free to leave a comment down in the section below. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like. Subscribe, like us on Facebook. We have DBZ tournaments every Saturday afternoon here at Top Deck in Bethel Park. So again, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day.